Well, hello, everybody. My name is Michael McCormick, and you are listening to the Superintendent Hot Seat, where bold superintendent leaders share real stories behind their most difficult challenges and decisions as they work to improve student safety, wellness, and attendance in a school system not yet fully prepared to support those entering our schools. Today, we've got Dr. Sharon Kherat. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. And I'm just going to jump right into the first question. If you had to rethink student wellness in your district, whether it's about student anxiety, depression, bullying, or violence, how do you approach this work?
Yeah, so this is a timely topic actually for the state of Illinois. I know we just did with Advance Illinois, which is really an amazing organization, and they all the research shows that there are two top issues in Illinois: wellness, mental health, wellness, and chronic absenteeism. And in Peoria Public Schools, we do a lot around that. We just had a board meeting, for example, last night. And in 2019, we went on this 4-year journey to redistribute our school days and our school year, actually. And so we took the 176 days and wanted to just redistribute that pie so that we'll have a shorter summer and give staff 2 weeks break in the fall and 2 weeks break in the spring. And it was a long journey. We had forums, we surveyed staff, we surveyed students, and the whole idea was around, and I told the board at the time, we're not necessarily going after increased academic achievement. It was around reducing stress. It was around wellness for staff and students. And it took us a while, but I'll tell you, we're looking at the data. 2 board meetings ago, a board member says, let's see the data. Discipline is down, attendance is up, student growth is up, retention. When I started in 2015, teacher retention was 78%. Now teacher retention is 89%. It's all about morale as well. I remember when we got on that journey, our teacher union surveyed teachers, and it was 50-50. And 2 months ago, they surveyed them again, and now it's 66% of that 1,000 members. They really like it. And at first, we started off going for a balanced calendar, 45 days in, 15 days out, because we have a school, Valeska Hinton. It's a pre-K center. They've been on a balanced calendar schedule for over 30 years. And after listening to parents, after listening to staff, we heard about childcare, and so we listened. For that 2 weeks off, we said, okay, no worries. For that extra week that we're adding on, we'll call it intercession. We'll do enrichment. We'll provide those supports. We'll pick up the kids, feed them, and so forth. And so last night, the board approved the 26th, 27th, and 27th, 28th calendar. And of course, we had some conversations. There are a few people that are sort of poking at it. And a big takeaway from our board meeting was let's vote on it for those 2 upcoming years. And the board, and with the changes of the new superintendent, they can always revisit it. But what I like, Mike, is that there's a calendar committee. I'm really not involved. There's a calendar committee, our 5 unions. There's representation there. There's representation from administration. Then they run, once they've decided, what it is, it's what it's going to look like, the proposed, then they run it through their members, and then it eventually comes to me, and then I just send it on to the board. So for example, in August, we are actually starting school for the upcoming year, August 3rd, and they'll go through June 3rd. And then the following year, 27-28, they'll start like August 2nd and they'll end May 31st. So we just basically stole 2 weeks from summer. And so you minimize the loss and learning loss, for example. And it's been it's been a wonderful journey. We had a school piloted, and what they found, discipline went down, staff morale went up. And a common theme I heard, once the kids came back, they didn't have a lot of reteaching to do. So just the retention, I mean, I would say, I mean, if somebody is concerned, as I said, in 2015, it was teacher retention was, 78%. And based on Illinois State Report Card, that number is 89%. And of course, discipline is down, chronic absenteeism is down. So it's at our enrollment. We're holding our own. We have 13,000 students over. Yep.
That's good. Well, I mean, I'm so delighted to hear this because I think it's one of those real systematic approaches. And like, look, for our audience members that are not like day-to-day education type people, there's a certain cadence or rhythm on a traditional school calendar. And that stretch from the first day of school until the first big break, which usually occurs around the end of November, that's a long stretch. And some people don't like this term, but I would say it like this, being a middle school principal, a high school principal in my career, that long about October, the honeymoon is over, and discipline is increasing and attendance is decreasing, and everybody is just had it up to here. And that may not be the most eloquent way to describe it, but that was my personal experience. I'll tell you another thing that's fascinating is when I was a teacher, and this was back in it was back in the 1900s. My kids always get a little chuckle when I say that. Back in the 1900s, and it was actually 1993, 94. I was a teacher at an elementary school, and we had what was called at the time a single track year-round calendar, which was very much like what you described. It was about 45 days worth of instruction and then 15 days off.
That's a balance.
Balanced calendar. And so we served a population that was significant multilingual learners. And what we noticed right away was that consistency of language instruction was very ideal for our multilingual learners at the time. And then we had the other things too. The other thing I wanted to talk about before I let you hop back in the conversation is I think people often underestimate the power of morale and giving teachers a breather at these intervals. I think, teachers, school administrators, their role is they're giving. And at some point, you've got to fill the tank back up. And so and the other thing, I guess one more, gosh, you just got me all fired up about this conversation.
That's great.
I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I love the idea, because you've got the structures in place where you've got that calendar committee with, union representation. Everybody's got a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. To me, that makes it easier, actually, from the superintendent's perspective, to be able to pass that along to the board and say, look, everybody who should have a voice, had an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think it just sets the board up to be in a position of success. And so kudos to you for taking the time necessary to really work through what sounds to me like an incredible plan. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, and we went very slow. Those were very relevant, Mike, and thank you for sharing those as well with the audience. But we went very, very slow. As I said, it took us 4 years, 2019. The board approved it in 2023. And I was like, this is even more power to convert into the modified calendar, because after COVID, I just saw the stress. I felt it. And then, of course, our attendance was just off the chains. And so, but we, in terms of the due diligence, I would say we really did a really nice job. We had several committees, a staffing committee, an athletic committee, a finance committee, a buildings and grounds committee, student achievement committee. We surveyed parents twice. We surveyed staff twice. We piloted it. And we wanted the balanced calendar. That's what I eventually wanted, which is what two of our schools. And those teachers said to me, Doc, we realize you guys are on this journey to convert. We want to stick with our balanced calendar, because once they're they're in that routine, they love it and they do not want to go back. So we went for the balanced calendar, but by listening to our parents around that length of time and childcare, it was a compromise to do the modified calendar with the 2 weeks where the district is picking up the cost for the intersession. We run that week. And I'll tell you, in 2023, we had about 1,000 kids. They took us up on that offer. And the last intersession, I checked the data, and it was about 400 students. So families are traveling and they're doing other things. And but still, you have to compromise, you have to listen, and you have to go very, very slow to go far with this transformation and restructure.
Yeah, it reminds me of Tyack and Cuban's book, The Grammar of Schooling, where, yes, we often minimize the experience of our parents with their schooling. And, there's these things there, and the calendar is one of them that, really pull towards what everybody's experience has been with school. And so as you begin to try to manipulate these deeply rooted systems and structures, mm-hmm, it actually takes a tremendous amount of energy and time to move people to see that, there might be something that would be a little bit better for our teachers and our students. But you've got to really move cautiously ahead, I think.
Well said. And I mean, the data is better than I even anticipated. Discipline, teacher retention, enrollments, and we're an urban district. And so our work is very, very intense. We have a lot of challenges. And so our vision at Peoria Public Schools is really to reimagine our work. We talked about when I came in 2015, we had 108 teacher openings. And reimagining with bringing in, we have close to 300 teachers from 16 countries. Now we have access that we're providing to 10 school districts in Illinois. With trauma and all of the ACEs, when I came in, there was a lot of complaints about student behavior and discipline. And we created a wraparound center. And again, back to the theme around wellness and mental health, we're providing online therapy as well, in addition to in-person. But there was a long waiting list. And now what I'm pushing this year is, I would like more of that online support, therapy, counseling support to take place during the day, so that I know it's happening, number one, and there's an impact, because, they'll say, okay, we'll do it on Saturday or we'll do it in the evening, but I'm not sure about that. And so especially those children who are, just involved with gross misconduct, we know who the red children are, those who need the tier 3 supports, and even tier 1 supports. It's very important that as a staff, we're very intentional about connecting them. And one of the challenges our staff will say is, it's hard to track parents down and get the signatures in order for that to happen. But I think where there's a will, there's a way. We have people who can go to their homes. We have people who can have really nice conversations with parents to show the impact. And there are things that we can do. I just want us to continue to work harder so we can get more parents to sign off on those forms, so that we can shift it and which allows us to have more control of that support with the children. It would be nice if it happened at home and on weekends and in the evenings, but with my group, not so much.
Yeah, I think you're describing a reality for a lot of school systems across the country, where the more that we can embed within the confines of the school day, the more likely we are to have a positive impact. And just kind of that even that daily check-in with students, how you feeling, and having some systems and routines where, like, I think back to, it's an interesting experience, but when I was superintendent, I used to, through a kind of a little fun process, I would do somebody's job in the district for a day. And
Hmm.
so I spent a day working in a middle school cafeteria. And I learned some really important lessons through that experience. And one was that there was a lot of love present in preparing student meals for the kids,
Hmm.
amongst the cafeteria workers.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I found really fascinating is that the cafeteria workers have that once a day or twice a day contact with just about every student in the school.
Yes.
And they are very intuitive and in I don't know what the right way to say it, but as kids were coming through the school, the lunch line, they were very aware of how the student appeared to them and the way they greeted the student and the way the student greeted them. And, they would often turn to me and say, "Oh, so-and-so is having a good day. I can tell." Or, "I'm a little worried about so-and-so because, they seemed a little quiet as they were coming through the lunch line." And so, the cafeteria workers would say, "Hey, we might be that person on staff who's actually had a face-to-face connection with a kid, because maybe in the classroom setting, the student is sitting towards the back of the room and they're kind of sitting there doing their work independently, and they may not have that one-on-one connection." And I just thought, this is the power of having multiple adults on campus who can be, um, that advocate for a student. And it really does take a whole team, to make sure the students are getting the very best of what we have to offer in our school systems.
I agree. I mean, we do a lot with Check and Connect as well. And I know custodians are involved. There was
Yeah.
campus security. We have about 46 of them. And cafeteria workers are involved as well. This year, there is a special buzz with Peoria Public Schools. For my convocation, I invited Ron Clark
Oh
from
yeah.
Atlanta.
Fantastic.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. Our teachers love him. About more than 200 of our administrators and teachers have attended, including myself. So we invited him, and the majority of the schools, I believe 19 of our 29 schools, have adopted the house system. So
Yeah.
when you were talking about, similarly, it reminded me of a sense of belonging. Kids are feeling loved, there's excitement. They're competing against each other. We had a cabinet meeting where I think they're doing some canned food drives, and houses are competing against each other. And we've seen increased attendance and decreased behaviors because of those houses and those relationships and the competition as well. Actually, on I think the 10th, 11th, and 12th of December, we are also going to be implementing the Amazing Shake. Have you heard of his
Oh
Amazing
yeah.
Shake?
Yeah.
The soft skills. And we have close to over 160 volunteers from our community, whether it's banks or social service or the city of Peoria, that are coming to be judges. And the kids are so hyped and they're so excited. And the top three, we've gotten money with Commerce Bank. I put a plug into Commerce Bank. They gave $4,000 for
Beautiful.
towards because then they'll move on to that global competition. And Mike Murphy, I think, is the other group that donated some funds as well towards travel expenses. So It's exciting. It's very exciting, and I am really we're this is one of our best years for sure. And
That's
the
awesome.
morale of staff, that's it's in a really good place, and people are just, our principals are working so hard, our teachers are working very, very hard, so I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, as you should be. It's a big deal. I'm going to say let's pause here for a quick 30-second message from our producer, Schoolbeat, formerly Muzoom, which is the only SEL platform both educators and students truly love. With low lift, Netflix style choose your own adventure lessons featuring real kids navigating real life challenges, daily wellness check ins, and real time insights into what students really feel. Schoolbeat is where every heart has a voice and every voice has a beat. All right, we are back. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. We spent the first part of the podcast kind of talking about all the wonderful things that are happening and, with this balanced school calendar and really paying attention to wellness for teachers and students. And so next I want to ask, how do you keep your cup filled up? You're in a situation, I think most people realize that, school district superintendents, you have a tremendous amount of interactions on a daily basis. And sometimes you barely get your foot out the door in the parking lot when the first thing is right there at you and you're making quick decisions. So how do you kind of recharge?
So I thank you for asking. I really like what I do. I just, I'm honored to be able to assist in making a difference, and the community and our staff just appreciating the work that we're doing together. So it you go to a funeral, you're at the dentist office, you're at the doctor's office, you're all over town, and people will say, everyone, you have the toughest job in the city, but you guys are doing a really, really nice job. Keep it going. So just that, the encouragement from our taxpayers and even surrounding areas as well. And knowing that the need is so high and being able to, so that inspires me a lot. And then there's certain things that I do after work. I'll go to the Y on my way home and walk a little bit. And my son is a health coach, so he helps make sure the cholesterol and the blood pressures, you know how that
That's right.
goes.
I do.
Yeah.
I always told people, I'm the worst example of work-life balance. And
I am as well.
but I just, I tell people, like, I'm not tempting fate, but I could die a happy person. There's something very fulfilling about knowing you've made a difference in the community that you serve. And if you get to hang out long enough, people will actually come back and say, you might not remember this conversation, but what you said had a huge impact on my life. And then they kind of tell you,
Hmm.
what happened. And then they'll ask, well, do you remember that conversation? And for me, oftentimes I actually did remember the conversation,
That's
and yeah. And so, there is something to be said for that. I think that, in kind of reflecting back now, I don't know that I would have changed anything, although, you it's kind of what you sign up for. You're going to make some family sacrifices and some
yes.
sacrifices, as being a parent yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and you're actually, your family is joining you on this journey.
Yes.
And sometimes that can take a toll.
Yes. And so I agree. You mentioned work-life balance, and in my head, and I'll try to tell the young aspiring superintendents, it's a myth. It really is, and especially if this job is, I mean, it's not a job. If you enjoy what you're doing, it's what do we say? It's a devotion. Um,
It's an
and
avocation. It
it's a,
feels like you never work a day in your life. You just
exactly,
love what you do.
exactly. And just knowing, as you said, what gives us joy, whether it's spending time. Of course, it's very important that I have a young. She's very smart and she's very talented, and she can be a superintendent. And I've been encouraging her to apply. And she says, my son he's a sophomore in high school, and
Yeah.
I don't want to miss anything. And so I'm going to wait. And I said, I respect that, and I love you for that. And she did it with her daughter. Her daughter is at Illinois State University. She did it with her. And so to each his own.
Right.
And there are no wrong or right answers as far as that's concerned. Some people need more balance than others, and that's okay. Just know thyself and make the adjustments.
I think that is tremendous advice because there are our superintendent colleagues who have wound up in the hospital,
Yes.
with health scares and, stress related incidents. And so it's not to say that it doesn't happen. Heck, I wound up in the hospital, during my tenure as a superintendent. And,
Some
you
of
know,
them have succumbed, right?
right, right. And so I think the advice of listening to your body, being in touch
Hmm.
with how you're processing, the day to day and how you're processing that stress. And as long as you have some healthy ways of dealing with that stress. You mentioned going to the Y, walking, working out. That's a healthy perspective. Trying to watch what you eat because I'm looking at being a brand new grandpa here pretty soon, and I'm thinking, my
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, my daughter's telling me, like we'd like to have you around for a little while so you
Yes.
can be part of the grandkids' life, and so
That's exciting.
it is exciting, and it's funny because I have twin girls, and as a middle school principal and a high school principal, and once I got to the district office, I really drug them to a lot of events,
Mhm.
whether it be sporting competitions or band or choir performances and the like. And they both swore to me they would never go into education. And fast forward today, one of them's a kindergarten teacher and the other one's a high school counselor. And so somewhere in those experiences, even if they didn't really fully appreciate them at the time, it had an impact on them.
Yeah, it's the
And
DNA. I guess it's
it's
a,
that's right. That's right.
you
That's
can
right.
run, but you can't hide, right?
That yes. And I think, education, we're always looking for good people, as you described. You can see the talent and you just think, man, you need to be in service at a greater level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to pull people along with us that we see as bright spots. What are you grateful for? What's on your gratitude list?
We're sharing a brain. I just had a cabinet meeting not too long ago, and that was the question. We meet virtually, and that's the question I threw in the chat. And I agreed with them. Overall, the theme that I saw included things like my family. There are a lot of I'm grateful for my family, and also my amazing team. So those were the everyone either said family, my amazing team, or both. And so yes, and just being a servant leader, and um, being given permission to be creative, think outside the box, to give each child enrolled in Pura Public Schools a fighting chance for not only to graduate but for a successful life thereafter.
So well said. It has been an absolute honor having you on the show today. The Superintendent's Hot Seat podcast. Thank you for joining us. An incredible guest, Dr. Sharon Kherat. We appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. It was a pleasure.